每天都有无辜的平民丧生。中方强烈呼吁有关各方，特别是以色列保持克制，切实落实联合国相关决议，立即停火止暴，保护平民，避免更多的类似悲剧。
China's call for ceasefire. In response to the recent surge in the Israel-Hamas conflict, China has called for an immediate ceasefire, positioning itself as a stabilizing force amid rising tensions in the region. By advocating for peace, Beijing aims to promote dialogue and calm the escalating violence, which has drawn international attention. This move has reportedly irritated Israel, as it contrasts sharply with its ongoing military actions against Hamas, reflecting divergent approaches to handling the crisis. Israel, feeling isolated on the global stage, sees this call as undermining its military efforts, which it frames as self-defense against terrorist threats. China's stance is not entirely surprising, given its historical emphasis on diplomatic solutions to global conflicts. As a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council, China has frequently called for ceasefires and negotiations in conflicts where it has strategic interests. By positioning itself as a peace advocate in this context, China is also signaling its broader geopolitical intentions, particularly in the Middle East. Its involvement is an effort to extend influence into regions where US dominance has traditionally reigned. Beyond immediate concerns about the conflict, China is also likely considering its long-term relationship with the Arab world. Several Arab nations have condemned Israel's military operations, and China's alignment with calls for peace may strengthen its ties with these countries. China has consistently voiced its support for the Palestinian cause, advocating for a two-state solution and criticizing what it sees as Israeli aggression. This diplomatic stance allows China to maintain strong relationships with both Arab nations and Iran, while also signaling its opposition to unilateral military action. Iran's preparations and Russian support. Meanwhile, in a related development, Iran is reportedly in the final stages of preparing an attack on Israel, potentially in retaliation for the assassination of a high-ranking Hamas political leader.
Has always taken the Palestinian-Israeli conflict as the most pressing issue. After the Resolution 2712 was adopted, which is the first resolution adopted by the Council since the outbreak of the conflict under China's presidency, we have initiated today's high-level meeting in response to the strong call of the international community. Foreign ministers and high-level representatives from about 20 countries participated in this meeting, and I would like to express my appreciation to all of them.
This act of aggression, if it occurs, could dramatically escalate the conflict. Iran's actions are driven not only by its long-standing rivalry with Israel, but also by its strategic alliance with Hamas, which it has supported for decades through financial aid and military training. Tehran's preparations suggest it views the current situation as an opportunity to assert its dominance in the region. Simultaneously, Russia has entered the equation by supplying Iran with advanced air defense systems. This support marks a significant shift in regional dynamics, particularly as it signals growing Russian-Iranian cooperation. For Israel, this is a troubling development. It not only raises the prospect of a broader conflict with Iran, but also complicates Israel's strategic calculations. Russia's provision of air defense systems to Iran strengthens Iran's military capabilities, allowing it to better defend itself against Israeli airstrikes, which have been a key part of Israel's strategy in recent years. Russia's support for Iran also highlights its growing role in Middle Eastern affairs. Although Russia has traditionally maintained a relatively neutral stance in the Israel-Iran conflict, its decision to back Iran more openly now suggests it is realigning itself in response to changing global dynamics. Russia may view this as an opportunity to expand its influence in the region, particularly as US involvement appears to be waning. This could also reflect Russia's broader geopolitical strategy of supporting actors who oppose US-aligned nations like Israel. Israel's balancing act. Israel now finds itself in a precarious situation, having to balance its complex relationships with both Russia and China, while simultaneously preparing for the possibility of a full-scale confrontation with Iran. Israel's military cooperation with Russia, particularly in Syria, has been crucial in maintaining regional stability. However, with Russia now strengthening ties with Iran, Israel risks losing one of its key partners in the region. This could undermine Israel's military operations, as Russia has allowed Israel relative freedom to strike Iranian targets in Syria in recent years. Moreover, Israel's relationship with China is also becoming more complicated. While China's call for a ceasefire may have been expected, it places Israel in a difficult position diplomatically. Israel values its economic ties with China, but China's increasing closeness with Iran and its pro-Palestinian stance could force Israel to reconsider the nature of this relationship. Navigating these complexities will be critical for Israel as it seeks to avoid further isolation on the international stage. At the same time, Israel cannot afford to alienate the US, its primary ally. However, with the US perceived by some to be retreating from its role as the dominant power in the Middle East, Israel's reliance on American support may become a vulnerability. Washington's hesitancy to fully commit to direct involvement in regional conflicts may leave Israel feeling exposed, especially as new alliances emerge among its adversaries. Broader geopolitical implications. The evolving situation may lead to a major realignment of power in the Middle East, with global ramifications. As Russia strengthens its ties with Iran and China continues to push for a peaceful resolution while maintaining its relationships with both Iran and Arab countries, Israel's global standing could face significant challenges. If the US is perceived as a waning power, particularly after its recent focus on Asia and domestic issues, the Israel-US alliance might not hold the same strategic weight it once did. The emerging Iran-Russia-China axis presents a new power structure that could significantly alter the regional balance. Iran, buoyed by Russian military support and China's diplomatic backing, may feel emboldened to challenge Israel more directly. This could lead to a more sustained and coordinated effort to undermine Israel's regional dominance, potentially leading to a long-term conflict that draws in more external actors. For Israel, this shift represents a profound challenge to its security and strategic outlook. Its long-standing reliance on US military aid and diplomatic support may no longer be sufficient in a region increasingly dominated by rival powers. The current crisis may force Israel to reconsider its foreign policy, particularly its relationship with Russia and China, as well as its broader approach to Middle Eastern diplomacy. The United States, too, will have to reassess its role in the Middle East. While it has been the dominant power in the region for decades, the rise of other influential players, such as Russia and China, may necessitate a more nuanced approach to the conflict. If the US continues to pivot away from the Middle East, it risks losing influence in a region that remains strategically important. The potential decline of US influence could also embolden other regional actors, such as Turkey and Saudi Arabia, to assert themselves more aggressively in the Middle East. These countries have their own complex relationships with Israel and Iran, and they may see the shifting power dynamics as an opportunity to expand their influence. Turkey, for instance, has frequently condemned Israel's actions against the Palestinians, while Saudi Arabia has been cautiously moving toward normalization with Israel, albeit with significant domestic and regional opposition. As tensions rise, the potential for broader conflict increases, not just between Israel and Iran, but across the region as a whole. The involvement of external powers like Russia and China only adds to the complexity, creating a situation where any miscalculation could lead to a more widespread war. The international community, particularly the US and European nations, will need to carefully monitor these developments and potentially recalibrate their own approaches to Middle Eastern diplomacy. In the long term, Israel may seek to diversify its international alliances in response to these shifting dynamics. While its relationship with the US will remain central, the need to engage more deeply with other global powers, such as India, Japan, and even parts of Africa, could become a priority. These nations, though not directly involved in the Middle East conflict, may offer Israel new opportunities for economic and diplomatic partnerships that could help counterbalance the emerging Iran-Russia-China axis. Ultimately, the Israel-Hamas conflict is not just a localized dispute. It has become a flashpoint in a broader geopolitical struggle that could reshape the balance of power in the Middle East for years to come.